Like I said earlier, he literally flew in minutes ago, so thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Let's just start things off easily. Talk about briefly describe what the Intellectual Property Corporation does.
So we make premium content for what used to be called television and is now TV and streaming platforms and cable. We started the company in 2016, and at that time, as we were launching, and I was putting the funding together for a new startup, I thought, if we're entrepreneurial and we're creative, we're just nuts if we're not at least spending some of our time thinking about what's new and next. And so we raised money for the sort of the television, the traditional television side, and that's most of what we do. We also, we raised money for sort of Skunk Works, and Project Foodie was my first glimpse of a different form of content empowered by mobile technology. And so that's what we do at IPC. But we make if you're a Scientologist, you probably hate us. We make a show called Leo Remini Scientology in the Aftermath for A&E that won an Emmy Award, and bless you. Now we're working on American Idol. We think we have 40 series on 20 networks.
Okay, and describe briefly what Project Foodie is.
So Project Foodie is an interactive cooking aid. It's an app designed to teach people and allow them to cook and to hold your hand and sort of cook along with you. There's a sort of nerdy way to describe it. I apologize, but when the Lumiere brothers came up with the kinetoscope, initially they filmed horses galloping and a train leaving the station, and then eventually we figured out a 90-minute running time and a movie theater setting was optimal 3-act storytelling for the film camera. And then TV came along, and we realized the new format, it's for living rooms, maybe an hour-long running time, 5-act storytelling, is better suited to bathroom breaks and commercial advertisements. And then these new devices came along, and I couldn't help think that they're so powerful, they have so much capability, surely it's not just the stuff's going to be shorter. And but I didn't have a glimpse of that until my little brother's a chef. He has the meatball shop restaurants in New York, and we grew up cooking. He grew up particularly cooking with my mom. I grew up doing the dishes and buying the groceries. And I have a little kid now, I have 2, and I wanted to cook for them. And I asked my brother to send me this super simple recipe that he used to be able to whip up in 10 minutes, and I thought I would cook it for my kids. And I just made a mess of it. And I have a chef on call, so I called him up, I asked him some questions, messed it up again, got frustrated, and just said, could you just send me a video of what you're doing? And then as he started giving me sort of pushback about how he'd hold the camera, I realized I had a crew in New York, and I sent them to his house. And I said, don't stop rolling. Like, that's the whole point. I want to see everything he's doing. I'm missing something. And so they sent me this 10-minute video, and this was an accident, but I realized I could hit play and cook along like an exercise video. And I nailed it, made it perfectly. And there was this sort of magic moment for me. The video ended, and he was putting the cucumbers, pickled chili cucumber vinaigrette on the plate with the salmon. And as the video ended, the dish had appeared what felt like by magic in my kitchen. And I felt like, wow, this is a glimpse of a different form of content, a different form of, it's not just passive entertainment. I'm doing something. I'm actually doing 3 things. I'm making dinner, I'm learning to cook, and I'm watching TV. And I gave it to friends who they all cooked it perfectly. My friend Katie Vowles is here in the audience somewhere, and she's led Project Foodie for us for a couple of years. She had never cooked before, was terrified of her kitchen. She sort of like got passionate about this mission because I gave her this 10-minute video, and she cooked the meal perfectly. And she said, like, oh my God, I can cook with this tool. And then we thought, well, maybe our friends are just being nice, and so we did a bunch of market testing and just sent it to a bunch of strangers, and every one of them just about came back and said, this is the best way I've ever learned how to cook. And if you've ever gone on YouTube to fix something or do a repair, and like once in a while it's some maniac who you get halfway through and you realize.
Oh wait, a maniac on YouTube?
Yeah, exactly.
I think we're talking about 2 different YouTubes.
But I had to pull a 50. I replaced I think a 30 amp fuse, the 50 amp fuse, and I was using a video on my phone, and right at the critical moment, the guy said, hey, and remember to grab your gloves and make sure you're grounded so you don't get a shock. And I'm like, this is brilliant. So that's what Project Foodie is. It's an app. It's designed to deliver video recipes. They're meals, not individual recipes, because one of the areas where you tend to get frustrated when you're cooking is you're not just making one dish, you're making a main, a side, and maybe an app, and it's trying to, I got one of them going, and it's going to be good, and it's going to be ready in 30 minutes, and I turn to the next one and realize, like, wait, it takes an hour. Damn it.
So let me ask you, you had a crew ready, right, to film your brother. What do you do now? How is it, so you produce big TV shows, but when you're producing something like this, what are the production considerations that you need? Because somebody could be watching it on their phone, somebody could be watching it on a tablet. GE has a giant 20-some-odd inch mounted TV screen that you could watch it on. Your hands are dirty. From a production standpoint, what is different now?
It's really different. And actually, we have to train people. We have to train a group at our company. I didn't realize how difficult that would be. There's filming safe for the different formats. Are they watching it like a snap video held vertically, or are they going horizontal, and what size screen? That's hard enough, and that's hard. But also just training editors who are used to pulling time out. Just about all cooking, and frankly, all entertainment and film, it's all about editing. It's pulling lots of material out. It's ellipsing time. Whereas what's critical here is staying in real time. And so figuring out how to make that interesting while never cutting is it's a real challenge. And we've had to train people. And then also having to figure out how to produce at a price point that on the one hand gives us great quality, but on the other hand doesn't put us out of business.
Sure, you had CinemaScope. We got an orchestra running the score in the background as you're dramatically chopping onions.
Yeah.
But there are things like 4K, right, which would show. So you probably have to be considerate of what vegetables you use, because you don't want to highlight a really bruised piece of fruit or something with some imperfection.
Sure, and future-proofing your video library so that it is in 4K. Creating a workflow. We need both. We need still assets as well as filmed ones. So we sort of set up a workflow where there's a sort of mini photography studio where the ingredients and tools are going to be photographed separately. Then they're going to get handed to the chef. The chef is going to cook with them. Then the dish is going to come off the line and need to get plated and get hero shots, both still and video, and all of that. Those are all the sort of assets that we need at each step of the way.
Are you trying to create hits, or are you trying to create libraries?
In this case, we're lucky enough on the sort of the day job side of our business to have success. So what we're trying to make is something great. We're trying to make something that works really well, and we feel like not so much if we build it, they will come. I feel very, very confident. I'm so excited about this conference and being here today. I feel very, very confident that technology will allow us to go back to the kitchen and cook more, and it's already doing that. And that's, if in the 50s, the advent of the microwave and packaged foods and all of that fast food got a lot of us to stop cooking, and then our parents didn't teach the next generation how to cook, and now lots of us don't know how to cook. Technology is getting us back in. What form that will take is an interesting question. We're looking at it from the perspective of high quality, entertaining content that makes you want to do it, that's enriching. And so,
yeah, but I would push back a little bit
please.
on that, right? So the idea being, I'm just going to pull something, like your chicken soup recipe doesn't need to go viral, right? Or you don't necessarily need it to go viral and rack up 50 million plays in its first weekend.
Yeah.
But you want to make it relevant enough and future-proof enough to where it's something people discover.
I want it to last for 50 years. We want each one of these things. Ideally, we would have the greatest chefs in the world who are interesting to watch. One of the things we learned is not any chef can do it. You've got to be engaging. It's got to be fun. It's sort of like what the airlines learned about the safety videos. If they're funny or engaging and interesting, we'll pay attention. And similarly, if it's just, it doesn't matter how qualified a person is, if they're really dry, it's not fun to watch, and you'll sort of disengage. So we're trying to make something great that lasts 50 years. The joy of cooking has been, I think, in continuous print since the 40s, and we'd like to create an asset like that. In time, I do think, for the way we all cook and probably for our ambitions, you do need to have a few thousand recipes, but I don't think you need to have a few million or a few 100,000. I think if you had the top I think for most people, practically, there's probably like the top 7 cuisines of the world that we're all interested in cooking, and then there's probably the top 200 meals within that, and so whatever that is, 1,400 recipes, and I think that's probably 95% of the cooking search that most people are going to want to do. And so that is scale, that's a library, but it's a library of quality.
So traditionally, coming from like a traditional TV background, and I'm just using that not in like a historic sense, but your success metric was kind of defined by how many people tuned into your show, how many people came back. What is your success metric now for this kind of content?
Survival. we're if we're alive and we're innovating and then every day that we have not failed is a day that we're that much closer to success. We've had enough positive response to what we've done thus far to allow us to keep going. There's enough M&A activity in this space that people are interested in giving us money to continue experimenting. We've gotten really efficient. We don't waste money. Our video cost is exceptionally low. Part of what we do really well is make good quality video, and so we're able to do that at a good price. Long term, it's got to be business. It's got to make money somehow. So whether that's because we're the content that goes on that great GE screen. Or if we're, or if it's a passionate user base that's paying some sort of subscription to access the library of content, or if it's commissions on grocery sales. On our thing, you can, pick a meal, sort it any which way by cooking time or cuisine type, set your serving size, it'll scale the ingredients for you immediately. Click here and it'll all get added to your Instacart so it can be delivered same day or the next day. And then when it's time to cook, the chef's there with you in real time. Timers pop up. It's all the stuff that I think some of the best competitors of ours in the field are doing, and probably a few whistles and bells that we think are a little bit better, and then a content experience that I think is vastly superior, if you could say that and be really humble at the same time.
You can say vastly superior, sure. Okay. So actually, let's. How far up the stack do you want to go with that then? So right now you have guided cooking videos, right? But do you want to integrate them into shoppable recipes? Do you want to integrate them into guided cooking systems? And that seems like a whole other. You either have to open up and be on all the guided cooking platforms, or pick kind of your winners, or whoever's going to pay you for the content, right? Like are you still looking at it as a very limited interaction, or are you looking at it kind of further deepening it further into it, so like it will set the oven, it'll talk to whatever system to set the oven at the proper temperature?
It can do that. I'm personally less concerned with that aspect. I think that's really interesting. On the plane on the way up here, I was thinking about this conference and how we've got all this incredible technology in terms of our ovens and pressure cookers and all that, and then our smartphones, and really humans are just a dongle that are connecting those two, which I think is sort of mind-blowing that we just happen to be able to allow that technology to interface. For me, when we made Project Runway, I was just trying to make a TV show, and about a year later, we set it at Parsons School of Design because they had sewing machines we could use for free, and they were empty all summer because the kids were on summer break. So it was a cheap location. I called them a year later and asked how the partnership was working out for them and if they were happy, and they said, "Oh, you don't know what's happened?" And I said, "No, what?" They said, "Our roles have doubled, and across the country, design school, fashion design school enrollments have gone up double digits," and I realized what a powerful medium television is and how influential it can be, and that there was a generation of kids that were pursuing a career that they might not have otherwise been aware of. For me, I'm passionate about, I'm just interested in people cooking. I think that I grew up in a house with great smells coming from the kitchen, and my mom and my brother over the stove and me over the sink, and I think that's a great way to spend time together. I think that's slowing down and experiencing life as opposed to, I'm a busy executive. I can't tell you how many bars I wolf down in the back of a car while I furiously type an email, and that's a nice, that I think pays for a nice vacation or time with my kids. But slowing down and having a quality of life, I think, is what is the purpose of what I think this technology can ultimately deliver for us. I'm really passionate about that, and I think we've got a really good way to do it. The idea that I could be trained by the greatest people who've ever lived, who've ever done something. Escoffier could be teaching me how to, I don't know, whatever, make some amazing dish. And I could follow along. What an extraordinary experience. And it turns out in the kitchen, if your ambitions are reasonable, you can do it. And that's a good enough goal for me, right? Just being able to experiment with that. If it winds up being a great business, I suspect that it will be for someone within 5 years. There's just no question. There's all these screens around us, and now entering the kitchen, the devices are smarter than ever before. It just seems sort of unavoidable that there will be some software content-driven interface that allows us to better utilize all of them. It's just a question of which one. Are we overbuilding it? Is ours too good? Are we putting too much of a premium on the people being funny and interesting and there being great takeaway? And does it need to be a little bit more utilitarian? That I don't know. We'll see.
So let's talk about distribution channels then. So yes, everybody wants to make good content, but you've got to be able to reach people. Mm-hmm. So what have you found are the best avenues, syndication channels for your content? Is it YouTube? Is it Amazon? What have you experimented with and what have you found success on? Or is it something more left field, like Snapchat or Instagram or something?
It's early days for us. At the moment, we're trying to be all and everywhere. We're early beta stage, so we're on iOS, not Android. That's immediately limits us massively. We've had good success on YouTube. Amazon Skillshare is something we've been experimenting with that's showing some promise. When we film our videos, we design them so that they can also be edited down into a shorter entertainment-only version so that can get syndicated out on other platforms, so that if you just want to watch content about food, if you just want to watch a great video, we're that for you, which allows us to be on more channels. I think, to your point, you do need to be everywhere. As a consumer, I want everything readily accessible where I am. I don't really want to have to go and search for it. The app allows us to provide functionality that pure video doesn't. When something goes into the oven and it needs to be in there for 10 minutes, if I want to pause the video to go and do something or prep something or wash my hands, it throws off the cooking time. So the app allows us to tap into the integrated timers within the phones, that the video can be paused, but it doesn't throw off your timing of cooking. So there's a certain level of functionality, the commerce bit that you mentioned in terms of scaling recipes, buying things that are better served by, I guess you could do it web-enabled, although we haven't done that yet. But optimally, I think you want to be everywhere if you can. Okay,
so we have a room full of smart and highly telegenic people. Some say the most telegenic people in any conference everywhere. So if they were thinking of adding video to whatever service, so let's say they're with an appliance company or if they're with a CPG company, what are the things people should know when they're trying to create this kinds of cooking content? Like, what have you learned? What feedback have you gotten from your users, or what have you learned in your years of production that people should think about if they are trying to develop a video strategy?
Great question.
That's why I'm here.
So one, a lot of people in the video content business take a lot of the money off the screen and take it as profit margin. So be careful who you work with and be thoughtful about that. Another thing to think about is quality and who you want to reach. Again, we've discovered that really famous chefs who are really cool that we shot with, we shelved their stuff because it wasn't good. And so there's a reason why the Food Network has certain stars. It's because they pop and they have an energy that reads through the screen. I think that can be really, really important as well. It's an interesting meeting place. It's part of what I love about what we do is it's a manufacturing process, and yet we're manufacturing something that has sort of artistic characteristics that there needs to be an allowance for. But I think, I guess a thing that we're sometimes brought in to consult, and people often will say to me, is it this idea the right one, or is it this other idea that's the right one? And the answer to that is nobody knows. And so you A/B test it, that you do all of them, and let the audience lead you. There's a lot that we're doing today that we didn't set out to do, that was through feedback and guidance. So I think those are some important things to think about. Look, if you can partner with a good company that does it, is a little bit self-serving, then I think I think that there's some institutional wisdom in the people that do it well. Just as if we were going to go make a kitchen product, we'd probably be better served working with someone in this audience than trying to go at it from scratch. I think those are the main things. And what we've seen is we can get a video made for $1,000, $2,000. That's great. And when we first started, it was costing $30,000. And when I say $1,000 or $2,000 to industry colleagues who have video-based cooking delivery systems, they're shocked at that price point. So it can be done. It can be done cheaply. It can be done really, really well. Go for it. It works. We've seen a really engaged audience. I think that's, if I could leave you with anything, it's that it really works.
All right. With that, go for it is what we're saying. Thank you, Eli. I appreciate it. Please give him a warm round of applause.
Thank you so much.